do that, and one was offered 10. Now, these people signed affidavits swearing to this, and there is allegedly some tape recordings of this going on. You know what that is? Huh? What happens when the guy that runs the company has minions that go out and break the law? You can charge everybody. You know what we call that? That's RICO. That's why they put RICO in place, so that guys who were, like Don Corleone, guys that were running large organizations of criminals that were out breaking the law, you could take them all down at once. If Diddy was doing what Diddy is accused of, if we believe that Diddy was running a RICO deal, how are we not thinking that his friend is? Oh, wait. They're not friends. Acquaintances. They run into each other at business functions. You know what I mean? Occasionally they may end up on the floor at a Lakers game or something, and championship game or something, and they'll go up and give each other a hug for the photo ops. But they're not friends. It's not like their kids call each other uncle. Oh no, they do though. Yeah, no, they do. In fact, depending on who you believe, they've swapped all kinds of things, right? Fun stories, good times, cigars, right? Chemicals, wives, girlfriends. Allegedly, they shared everything. For the lawyer to then pop out and go, yeah, these guys barely knew each other. It's not like they're tight. They weren't friends. They just ran into each other at industry functions. Like there were a couple of friggin' salespeople, right, selling insurance that pop up every once in a while when there's a convention. It's the dumbest thing anyone's ever said. But it gives you a really good idea of how tone deaf everybody involved in this thing is, right? Seriously, just how tone deaf everybody on that side is. And it's cranking up people like me and people like you. It really is. This is why I'm saying I don't think this guy can win in any way. If he gets this thrown out, though, what's the world going to say? He R-worded that girl, right? But he got enough money to buy him some justice. Guaranteed he did that. Now, he has to. If he doesn't win, then every other person like her, right, who allegedly may have had the same thing done when Diddy looked no longer invincible, right? When there was a chink in the armor, when people realized that this dude could be taken down. He just paid Cassie, what, 30 million, 35 million, depending on who you believe? A lot of money, right? A lot. Let's say it was 30 million. Once that happened, people came out of the woodwork. There were 3 lawsuits, bing, 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 one right after the other, as soon as that was over. And then other people started to come forward. Then we heard from Busby, and it was holy hell, right? 120 lawsuits being brought by one lawyer. There's another lawyer that's bringing 3. There's another lawyer that's bringing 4. One that's bringing 2. The difference right now between Voldemort and his stupider friend, the Diddler, right? The Penguin and the Diddler. The difference between those two right now is no one is as afraid of the Diddler as they used to be, right? That's over. It's done with. I did see that Tyler Perry's CEO died. Isn't it crazy that we live in a day and age where if the CEO from Tyler Perry's production company dies, we go, I wonder if he had dirt on somebody. I wonder if this had something to do with freak-offs and the Diddler. Sounds paranoid, doesn't it? I mean it. Sounds like we're all nut jobs. But we're not. Are we? There's just way too many bodies around this cat. Now, make no mistake. I'm not accusing the dude of anything. Everyone else is. I'm just pointing out that he's been accused. There's a lot of people that believe that Kim Porter's death was not heavy bar pneumonia or low bar pneumonia or whatever they call it. A lot of people don't buy that, right? Albie Shore's been vocal as hell. There's a lot of people that simply don't buy that. Now, that's one, right? If we look at Wolf, allegedly, Wolf loaned him a bunch of money to get Bad Boy Records off the ground. And then when he died, you heard his bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he lied to Wolf's mom, said, no, I didn't know him anything. It certainly seems like when people pass away around Shaun Puff Daddy Diddy Diddler Brother Love, he always seems to come out smelling like a rose when somebody he knows passes away. And that's odd. They certainly try to link him to Tupac Shakur's death, and they certainly try to link him to Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G. You think they're all wrong? You think everybody's wrong? Because I'll tell you what, man, even if everybody is wrong, do you understand why people didn't want to come forward? We know he organized a basketball game which 9 people lost their lives at that game because of what an asshat he was with how he did what he did. Gene Deal swears that he told them if he didn't clear that doorway, people were going to die, and a bunch of people did. But he just goes zip and just keeps on living his life, right? 9 people stopped living theirs, but he just keeps on living his life. And he kind of lives it charmed, doesn't he? Right? The incident earlier at the nightclub, he goes tearing off in a car with a driver, right? And a feminine hand comes out the window and tosses a pew-pew. But when they pull the car over, there's still a couple of other pew-pews in the car, right? Anybody else on planet Earth ain't walking from that charge. If you look over all of the evidence in that case, when you get to the end and find out that it's not guilty, there's nobody that can't go, oh yeah, somebody had to get paid off on this. I mean, they laid it out, big, not a shadow. I mean, it was cut and dry. But out of his own mouth, according to Cassie Ventura, he bought that jury. Right? I'm sorry. I think it might have been a little raw last week. But he bought that jury. Had somebody on the jury that he bought with a little help from Johnny Cochran. Sorry. Now trying to smut up somebody that's dead who can't, but this is what has been alleged. I wonder why they don't want to let him out on bail. Right? I mean, in that lawsuit, he talks about how he managed to buy justice once before. Why would we think he's not going to do it this time? Especially since he's been trying to. So, on the diddler front, they're fighting really hard to make sure, or to try to make sure, that they can keep certain pieces of evidence out of this trial, right? Because we're moving forward, peeps. There has not yet been a superseding indictment that's got everybody scratching their head. There's a lot of grand jury testimony, and grand juries will indict a ham sandwich. So why are we not seeing, right, more people? Why are we not seeing more superseding indictments? Why are we not seeing the one that I think everybody on earth is waiting to hear? And that's the human T of a minor. It also would be the superseding indictment that would kill the defense. Dead, right? Dead and buried. There's the only defense that he has right now goes out the window if any of these people can be proved to be underage. Because the diddler's defense is going to be, this was consensual. We're freaks. Like, you may not have to like it or understand it, but that's how we get down. When we have schmecks, we do it with 5 and 6 people, and yeah, we bring in some pros, right? Professionals, sex workers, right? Well endowed sex workers, because that's what he's into. And he lights cameras and he sets the whole thing up like he's a director, right? And he gets all weird and rubs out a giggity in the corner while this is filmed for days. Now, you may not appreciate that. That might sound really disgusting to you, but this is what they do, and it's a loving relationship within the framework of what it is that they shared. It's a kind of a tough sell in and of its own. But once you put a minor in, a minor can't consent, right? And I know what you're thinking. People who take chemicals can't consent, but what they're going to say is they knew they were taking those chemicals. They were into it. Yeah, absolutely. They were taking this, and this, but they knew it, right? They were looking forward to it. He's an evil piece of crap, right? By Cassie's own words in the lawsuit, it was her responsibility to go and hire the sex workers. It was her responsibility to set the entire freak off up. You think that was by accident? Honestly, you think it was just Shaun's too busy for that? He's too much of a bigwig to have to call it. He would give her instructions, right down to how long this dude's members got to be. I'm not joking. Wish you were making that stuff up, but we're not. Right? Gene Deal talks about that a lot. said that he was absolutely trying to hunt the largest that he possibly could. Not for Cassie, but for him. Who cares, right? Who cares? But the part that you got to care about, because again, this is just what they do, right? According to them. But the problem becomes the coercion aspect of this. And we saw what happens when Cassie tries to leave a freak off, right? Whether we like it or not, we saw that. I think a lot of us would have been just as happy to not see it. But we watched her in that hotel getting the ever-loving crap kicked out of her. He punched her. He kicked her, right? He threw a vase at her. And he did all of this without losing his towel. Leads you to believe maybe he's done it before, yeah? It might lead you to believe that he has put hands on her in the past so damn often that he can beat this girl with a towel on. Pro. They want that video obviously thrown out. It's not going to happen. That video is going to get in there. You know, the state leaked that. Who do you think leaked it? I don't think the state leaked it. Put a deuce in the chat if you think Cassie Ventura's legal team leaked it. How about this one? Give me a 3 in the chat if you think people from Diageo might have leaked that. I think Cassie had a lot of help with her lawsuit. I think Cassie had a lot of help with that lawsuit. This was not her first run at the diddler. But last time she didn't go in there with a high-powered attorney. She walked in and said, I'm thinking of writing a book. I want $30 million. He said, how about 10? This time when she showed up, she said, I want X amount of money. And he said, who's got my pen? Right? Let's get this done. Didn't take long this time, did it? No. You know why? Because it wasn't some pipe dream of, I might write a book. It was, check this out. And whoever did it, right? This was no disrespect to Cassie, but there was a big shift in how she did it the first time or the second to how she did it this time. And a lot of people think that shift was because she was working with some people that really had his demise as their number one goal. Like maybe people that have been gathering opposition info on this guy. He was their number one dog. He was selling millions of cases of spirits a year, making them a pile of money. It was in their best interest to keep an eye on the diddler. It was in their best interest to probably have a private investigator on the cat 24/7. And you go, oh, Tommy, that sounds paranoid as hell. But why did they stop funding him? Why did they stop putting big advertisements behind him? Because they were racist? I don't think so. I don't think so. They got in bed with him in the first place and then decided to become racist. They got in bed with him, and when he started cranking out money and really killing it, they were sponsoring parties. It said Ciroc everywhere. De Leon tequila brings you, right? It was, no, I think they saw the writing on the wall. I think they watched a lot of women running out of this guy's place, right? Looking like they were chemicaled. We've heard people who have gone and done interviews, right? People that have been to these parties where they said there were people just laying down unconscious in different phases of unconsciousness, laying on stairs or on. We've seen the clip of film of this is what happens to white boys when they come and party. And this guy's a DJ. He ought to be able to hang. Ages like a fine milk, doesn't it? All of those creepy ass videos of him. Age well, doesn't it? Just stinks. You do realize, right? Hold on. You know, I pray that Gene Deal is truly the person he's portraying himself to be. Nothing is shocking anymore, but I would honestly be heartbroken if we learn otherwise. Here's what you got to remember, man. Here's what you got to remember. Gene Deal is putting out the best version of Gene Deal he can. So what you're left with always is to look at these people and use discernment, right? People, my past is hideous, right? It is. I have a very, very disgusting past. But if a person can tell you what's going on in their lives, they either come across as honest or not, right? Gene Deal gives me an incredibly good vibe. I find that guy to be, of all of the people in the Diddyverse, I think I probably find him to be the guy that takes the high road the most. And I know I've talked about this many times on many different platforms, but the way that he handled the situation with Usher, it's not my story to tell, he says, right? And what are we talking about? We're talking about him bleeding rectally. Okay? Not from wrestling for cornflakes. Feel me? No. This guy had to go to the hospital because something that was done to him sexually caused him to bleed. And Gene Deal covered that a lot classier than I just did because I don't have a lot of respect for Usher anymore at all. I don't. And I understand that Usher was a victim. But once you begin to embrace the person that victimized you, he talks really beautifully about this guy. And Gene Deal's got multiple horror stories about him in relation to Diddy. It sounds silly, doesn't it? When we say stuff like the dude made a deal with the devil or he sold his soul to the devil. And then we hear about these stupid things like these rituals. This can't be real, right? The guy's shoving an egg up somebody's ass. Like, this makes any sense to anybody? But then you see all these weird photos, right, of people standing there. They're holding an egg. And you're like, it's flipping weird, isn't it? I mean, honestly, what's the point? Aren't doctors mandatory to report, says Kestrel. Yeah, it's funny. This again gets back to why we get angry, right? I've told this story about 100 times, but I got into a fist fight with a guy. It's not even a really big deal. It just it was a business thing, and we got lippy with one another. We ended up swinging at each other, and I caught a cut over my eye. No big deal, but I needed to go in and get some stitches. And when I walked in, the woman said, "Ooh, that looks nasty. What happened to your eye?" I said, me and a friend got in a fist fight. Just stupid stuff. I said, it was actually over a business contract. And she went, "Oh, I'm sorry. I have to call the police." And I ran the hell out of there, jumped in my car and drove away. But any kind of anything, right, like that, you have to report it to the police. But we have heard from bodyguards, multiple bodyguards, right, that Diddy had a back door into a hospital or into a doctor, a back door that he could take women, right, who were injured. We also know that allegedly he had to fly in somebody to do plastic surgery on a nose that he broke because he's a hero, right? This would have been Kim Porter that needed this done. So we know that there have to be doctors that are involved in this, that are complicit in this. We also know that allegedly, after these freak-offs, they need to run IV fluid because they're so dehydrated. Now, I'll be honest, man, you don't need a doctor to run an IV bag of fluids. You don't. However, it seems to me, I'd be really curious to know, every time they mention the chemicals that allegedly they're using to incapacitate men and women, they say that there is G, right, gamma hydroxybutyrate. They say that there's K, special K, that's ketamine. And then the third one that they say is MDMA. Now, MDMA is methyl methamphetamine, something like that, right? But it's a methyl-based drug. It's like it's crystal meth is the basis of this drug. And something else is synthesized in to kind of heighten like sense of touch and sense of things of that nature. But it keeps you up, right? Gamma hydroxybutyrate, while you still have some of the weird mental feelings where you're in and out, it takes you down, not up. Mixing the two would be really odd, but I feel like these guys did have, this wasn't just grabbing G and going. It seems to me like this stuff was balanced. They had a purpose of what this chemical was supposed to do, and I think that it was doing more than random run-of-the-mill GHB. I think they were adding other stuff to it. I think that they were doing stuff so that the person wasn't just unconscious. The person was just incapacitated. They were awake. I think that there was some sick, perverse whatever that they get out of this, right? I've said this a million times. It's got nothing to do with sex. And in this particular one, it has to do with humiliation, right? We know that there are humiliation rituals. We talk about, and not us. We're repeating what people say. But Chappelle talks about it, how they're going to, if you want to get to the next level, you're going to wear a dress, right? You're going to shoot and do scenes wearing a dress. Why? Because allegedly, they want to humiliate black men. And there are these rituals, right? You see things online of guys hopping around like bunnies and all these different things that they can do to humiliate these people, to get people to do things that they don't want to do. You understand? To get people to do things they don't want to do. If everybody that's listening to the sound of my voice has a sexual preference, right? Some of you might not care as much. Maybe you dig everything. But if you have a sexual preference, the idea of someone saying, I want you to do the exact opposite of that, right? And to do it with someone that you don't care about, or you're never going to be successful in your chosen career, is a frightening, flipping concept. Especially if you believe, and I do, that this was so systematic that it was far more rare that you got somehow a recording contract and you got some kind of a deal in life without having to do this. That the standard, that the norm is, yeah, you're going to take an egg in the backside, and that ain't going to be the only thing you take in the backside. You're going to spend some time on your knees, and this is the kind of crap that gets done. I think it's really an exception. And I'll tell you something. We talk about the people who have so much talent, right? That have so much talent that they wouldn't have to compromise themselves. We do believe those people exist, do we not? I mean, we say we do. The last time I brought this up, people said, yeah, but if you got perfect pipes, or if you can act like maybe Meryl Streep, right? Meryl Streep's won, I think, every Academy Award. Has there ever been one that didn't go to her? She's won a lot of them. I don't think anyone's won more Academy Awards than Meryl Streep. If I'm wrong, she's won a ton of them. Obviously a very good actress. She once got up and said, I'd like to thank Harvey Weinstein. He's God. I woof you not. You can look this up. What does that mean? Honestly, what does that mean? Was she so tone deaf she had no idea what was going on, right, in the world? Or in spite of that, she just still thought this dude walked on water? Or did she have to do crap with this dude to get into the picture she got into in the beginning? It sucks that we got to have this conversation. It sucks that you got to speculate. But the woman did get up and call Harvey Weinstein God. Boy, you talk about not aging well. Holy hell. How embarrassing is that? I mean, for real. As of yet, Taylor Miller, we have not seen a superseding indictment. And I'm a little shocked, if you want to know the truth. Maybe, just maybe, the prosecution doesn't think they're going to have any problem at all hitting the May 5th deadlines. And that may sound crazy, but there are other crimes, obviously, that we believe Diddy has done. Nevertheless, the real thing that I think the reason that most people assume the superseding indictment is coming was to buy more time, because the defense wants a speedy trial. They're demanding a speedy trial, and they have set the trial date for Cinco de Mayo. It's going to be a really tall order to put this together by Cinco de Mayo. And then the other thing that we've got is this. Why is Maureen Comey brought in? Right? Why did they bring in a new prosecutor? One who very specifically prosecutes human tea at the kid level. Like, they set everything up. It's almost like if they're not going to do a superseding indictment, did they just want us to believe that there was going to be one? Because they sure as crap have sold it. I mean, everybody out there's not a pundit that didn't see it coming, that didn't think, oh, it's coming. Hold on one second. I hope they start going after the likes of Clive Davis and Cohen, and there are quite a few more there who need to be held accountable as well. Allegedly. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Yes. Superseding indictments, Lisa Trimble asks, a superseding indictment could come literally the day before. And whatever they're doing with the superseding indictments, you got to realize at this point that it has less to do with anything other than playing chess. You know, think of it like a football game. I'm not being a wise guy, but this is like, they're playing the clock. They're doing all kinds of things right now. That's kind of this is a big deal case. And I would imagine that they have strategized ad nauseum. We also have to remember too, that the whole the leadership at the top of this prosecution's office has just changed hands, right? So as of, I think, the 13th or the 14th or something like that of December, they had to bring in a whole new crew. Now, you're bringing in a whole new crew right before Christmas, right before New Year's. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to see the superseding indictments come down this week. I can't believe for a second that I don't see that there's any chance in hell we're not going to see a superseding indictment. I just don't. Hold on one second. Someone has asked the $1 million question, right? This is the $1 million question on everybody's mind is this just a something to distract us, right? The question then becomes, what are we distracting us from, right? We've seen so many stories, right? Think of all of that. I mean, the news cycle and the cases that we follow, like Johnny Depp trial was huge, right? It was massive. It really was. It was a huge trial. There's so many people watching it. There were other. I mean, there was a point at which one of the trials, no joke, had 100,000 people in a live feed. That was huge. It really was. This is different, and I don't think they're good enough, right? And I mean that. I don't think they're good enough to keep us engaged at this level, right? Because I can tell you this. I most assuredly am keeping this story alive, right? I comment on this story a lot. And this is a large part of what I do now. I'm not compensated for it. I mean, of course I'm compensated for it, but I mean, there's nobody paying me to try to keep this story in the zeitgeist and to have people continually talk about this. Quite the opposite. My audience is going to lose their freaking mind when I talk about other things, right? This is really like on the Lifeboat, which is my channel. If you got a wrench, put up a link to my channel. I need about 100 of you to hit subscribe over there. I'm trying to hit 28,000. Trying to hit it before the first of the year. Running a little late, but do go over there and hit subscribe. I'd appreciate it. But no one's paying me to keep that in there. But my audience very much wants to hear about Voldemort, and my audience very much wants to hear about Diddy. And the reason is we have all been collectively paying for this party. We've been keeping these guys in baby oil and GHB on our dollars. No joke. Apparently, Diddy's real estate portfolio has just hit an all-time high. One of his properties is now worth an estimated $78 or $79 million, which is lovely. Good for him. Where did all that money come from? Us, your kids, my kids, merchandise, buying Shaun John sweatshirts, buying 3 a.m. cologne, right? We paid for the party. And I think people are starting to realize that we've been paying for the party for a long time for a lot of people, a lot of sick people. And then you start hearing these stories. And you start hearing these stories from people that don't seem like they got a lot to gain. In fact, they're going to catch a lot of crap. It's opening themselves up for a whole lot of hate. But we hear these stories of what happens at 3 a.m., right? For real. When they start bringing in Barbie dolls that can actually move, right? Like life-size looking Barbie dolls that are kids that are allegedly there as party favors for the guests. I can't think of anything that would be more foul than that. I mean, when the distraction is somehow worse than whatever they're trying to get us to look away from, because this is the world that we live in. And I think now we're all starting to really get a handle on the fact that this is the world we live in, right? This has been going on in music. This has been going on in entertainment. I covered this the other day on my channel. Do you know that there are city employees in New York City that if they wanted a little overtime, they may not have gotten an egg jammed in their backside, but they were still going to have to get on their knees or do something sexually for the person that was booking the overtime. And you go, what? Well, I mean, here we go again. Here we go again. Now you got somebody in a position of authority that says you can make a lot more money, but only if I say you can make a lot more money, right? If I don't say you make a lot more money, guess what? You don't. So I need you to hit your knees. I'm not trying to be shock value or anything else. That's what's going on. And I think collectively as a society, we've gotten to a point where we're like, you know what? Sorry, but F you. This is what's been going on for how long? So if you got power in any way, you get to decide whether or not you hire somebody, whether or not you give somebody a career, whether or not you make dreams come true. If you feel the need to swap that out for a little chunk of somebody's soul, then I think you need to go to prison. And I'm not sure, honestly. I think certainly from a pop culture standpoint, there's never been a time in my life where the hideousness of the world we live in was more on display. If you can think of something, right? If this is the nastiest story, especially concerning Hollywood and entertainment, if this is the nastiest story of your lifetime, give me a 2. If you can think of something that's worse, give me a 3, and then I'm going to want to know what it is. Because in my lifetime, I've never seen the curtain pulled back on these dirtbags. I haven't. Now, I was in prison when the Me Too movement was going on. I was still incarcerated. So, I got about six or seven magazines, and one of them was a weekly thing. I think it was Us Weekly. So once a week, I would find out who was getting canceled in the Me Too movement and all of that stuff. But I wasn't reporting on it. Right. This is it. Right. This is it. It isn't. It's so much different. Right. It really is. Have you ever felt like this at any time in your life? Because I haven't. I don't know about you, but I haven't. In fact, to me, this has reached a level of foul, right? That I believe we've gotten to the point where we don't want to deal with this anymore, right? I don't want my money funding a 14-year-old boy taking his right hand and grabbing his left ankle to prove that he is, on board to be a rock star. This is what we do. You want to be famous? Allegedly, a 9-year-old boy said that that's what Diddy told him. You know this, right? Unless you're new to this story, a 9-year-old boy alleged that happened. Said this is what everybody that's going to get into music does. I don't know. You know what? Jimmy Savile was worse, I think, says Tyne, and that's a hard one to argue. Jimmy Savile is an absolute abomination. But you know something? The similarities, I think, are what chaps you about Jimmy is probably the same thing that's chapping everybody about Diddy, right? This was in our face. This person was friends with politicians, right? This person hung out with the ultra hooked up, right? We talk about the white parties all the time, but there's someone that's alleging that they were assaulted after one of the black parties. And the black parties were a little bit different. The black party was a vote or die party, allegedly, right? Well, this vote or die thing, and I'm not going to do the political affiliation crap, so miss me with that because it's not part of the story. As far as I'm concerned, because it could have just as easily been the other team. But he was very much becoming affiliated with one political party and busting his ass to get people out there to vote, which is not a bad goal. It's not. But it seems like the people that are really doing the filthiest stuff in the entire world want to get in our face as much as possible about it. They want us to know they're doing it, right? They do. So they start these little things like old Ashton Kutcher's done, right? I'm sorry, but do you find it really weird that Ashton Kutcher's going out of his way to try to do something about kids being human teed? His best friend's Danny Masterson, and he kicks it with P. Diddy. I'm sorry, that doesn't smell right. Doesn't pass the smell test. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Matthew Perry's death, was it related to any of this? Matthew Perry's death. I have done a decent amount of deep diving on this. And what Matthew Perry's death comes to is greed, right? People that wanted to make money so badly that they just didn't care that this was a man that had fought his entire life to just try to be happy in his own skin. We see the ultra rich and we see the ultra famous and we think, oh, they got it all. They do. All of it. Every problem you could possibly imagine. Every stress you could possibly imagine, right? And on top of that, you got that thing right here on your neck that people would make me